Let's talk to a chief investment officer who oversees more than £5 billion. He's Kleinwort Benson's Jeremy Beckwith. He joins me now. Thank you so much for joining us. There is concern, actually, that a lot of the banks will need capitalization. We heard Jürgen Stark just telling us this morning that he's concerned about the German banks. Overall, you know, I know I speak to you every couple of months. It's good news, good news. What are the next 6 months going to bring us?
I think the next 6 months is a slowdown in growth. That actually just highlights a problem that the banking system in Europe does have. And yes, I'm sure there are several hundred billions worth of new capital will be needed by the European banks over the next 2 or 3 years.
But we knew this before, didn't we? I mean, even the bank stress tests that we passed in Europe were a little bit of a joke.
Yep, that's right. But what we don't know is just how much the ultimate figure is going to be. We know that the Europeans are going very slowly in admitting the debts that they've got and the bad loans they've got in their balance sheets. And I think it's going to be several years and an awful lot larger ultimate number than people really have figured out so far.
Why are they so slow in actually admitting? Because that's worse for the markets. I mean, uncertainty is probably the worst thing you could do to anyone.
That's right. I think they can only announce as much bad news as they're able to cope with and deal with at any one time. And so every time that the bank's able to get more capital, then they can announce they can write off the bad loans that they had originally the bad capital, the new capital replenishes.
What exactly are we facing? I mean, can the bank crisis essentially bring us back into recession here in Europe? Are we going to see any big bank fail?
You could easily see big banks fail. I think in Greece and Ireland and possibly in Spain. The German banks are woefully undercapitalised, but I think that the German state will come in at that point. But they have actually actively failed anyway. I think we're seeing an economic slowdown. I don't think it goes into recession. If you did see a major bank allowed to go under in Europe, then that does lead the possibility a recession could come about again.
Norway's sovereign wealth fund is actually saying, well, I believe in Greece, we're buying some of the debt. Does that give you hope that, the country won't default?
Not in itself, it's a market. They have a different opinion to me. I find it almost impossible to see how Greece can not actively default on its debt at some point in the next 3 or 4 years.
Oh, really? Any other countries that would go down with it?
Well, I think if one goes, then the market will then go and latch on to all the other weak ones, and so they'll all have to very quickly decide whether not to default or whether to try and stay in the euro.
But what does it mean for the euro? I mean, do they have another choice? Is there any way that actually they can put in another stimulus now to prevent this from happening?
In Europe, no, because the ECB are not prepared to put any sort of monetary stimulus in. They're not in a position to put any sort of fiscal stimulus in. So there is no stimulus that Europe can do by itself.
What about the European Union or the European Commission? I mean, you're telling me that whatever happens in 3-4 years, Greece will default, and if it does so, other countries will follow suit.
Other countries may follow suit, yeah.
What does that mean for stock markets then? Volatility over the next couple of years?
I think we're in an era of slow growth. When those events happen and it causes upset and volatility in those markets, it's not in the end all that bad for equity markets. It's not great for bond markets, though.
So how do you place yourself as an investor today? What kind of portfolio would you be looking at?
Well, we're trying to avoid Europe as much as possible. I think that the problems it has are very difficult for it to avoid over the next few years. In the long term, the growth in the world is going to come from Asia, and you want your growth exposure to come from there. And where you are invested in government bonds, you want to be invested in the more secure, better balance sheet governments.
Like what, the US? Not really.
Not really the US. I think the UK actually is beginning to come out now with a government that has a serious, credible budget deficit plan. It won't end up with too high a level of debt relative to GDP and is looking one of the best of the Western world.
But Jeremy, even here in the UK, we're talking about possibly another bond purchase because the momentum is ebbing. Are you not concerned about that?
I'm not concerned because it's part of the Bank of England's brief in order to try and get inflation back up towards 2%. So they will do that if they think the economy needs it. That actually supports financial markets in the short term.
So you would buy UK equities versus both Europe and the US?
Yes.
All right, Jeremy, thank you so much. Jeremy Beckwith there.